Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going on a seriously fascinating journey. We're going to look at how a wildly imaginative, kind of goofy comedic radio show from the late 70s somehow evolved into this profound philosophical text and, honestly, an astounding technological prophecy. The mastermind behind this whole shebang is Douglas Adams. His masterpiece, The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, is so much more than just a funny story about space travel. It literally holds up a mirror to our own human existence and, crazy enough, predicted the very screens you're likely looking at right now.
So let's jump right in with the most famous number in all of science fiction history, 42. If you know the book, you already know. But honestly, even if you don't, 42 has completely permeated pop culture. I mean, if you go to an internet search engine right now and ask for the meaning of life, this is the exact number it'll spit right back at you. But why?
Well, in The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, there's this enormous supercomputer named Deep Thought. And Deep Thought was tasked with calculating the ultimate answer to life, the universe, and everything. After churning away for a mind-boggling 7.5 million years, it finally revealed the answer to a very eagerly waiting civilization. The answer? Exactly 42. The catch? Absolutely nobody knew what the actual question was to begin with. Naturally, humans being humans, we couldn't just leave it at that. We immediately tried to find the hidden logic, right? We assume a number like this must hold some massive scientific or mathematical weight. And to be fair, mathematicians actually did find some incredible properties. It's a pronic number, it's an abundant number, and it can even be expressed as this incredibly massive sum of 3 cubes. Just look at those gigantic numbers. For decades, people literally tried to reverse engineer the brilliant hidden meaning behind Douglas Adams' choice. But here's where we get the ultimate anticlimax. Douglas Adams flatly admitted he just made it up. Seriously, he picked 42 simply because he thought it was funny. He just wanted a completely ordinary, totally unremarkable number. All that deep mathematical significance, all the intense academic diving, we projected all of that onto it ourselves. And honestly, that brilliant anticlimax is exactly the point. Which brings us perfectly to our first major concept, Part 1, Cosmic Horror and Absurdism. You see, the underlying joke of Adams' entire body of work is that the universe really doesn't care about our frantic search for profound answers. To wrap our heads around this, we can look to the French philosopher Albert Camus. He defined this friction as the absurd. It's basically the conflict between our desperate, very human need to find a grand purpose and the cold, silent reality of a universe that offers absolutely none. Camus actually compared human life to the Greek myth of Sisyphus. Imagine a guy condemned by the gods to endlessly push this huge, heavy boulder up a hill, only to watch it roll right back down again, for all eternity. That's the absurd. And this dynamic perfectly illustrates how academic analysis views Adams' work. As humans, we are obsessed with charting, compartmentalizing, and graphing a cosmos that, at the end of the day, just lacks a point. Sure, Adams wrote science fiction comedy, but underneath all those jokes, he was illustrating a universe that continually mocks our desperate attempts to apply human logic and meaning to it. Another philosopher, Thomas Nagel, described this exact condition as the clash between our internal and external perspectives. Our internal perspective is what keeps us going, right? We pay our bills, we make a sandwich, we do our daily chores as if they are absolutely the most important things in the world. But then when we zoom out to the external perspective and look at our lives objectively against that terrifying, infinite cosmic void, well, our daily routines suddenly seem totally pointless. And that tension right there between those two sides is exactly where the comedy in Adams' work thrives. Adams showcased this cosmic horror so perfectly, and he did it through a series of escalating scales. Early in the story, the actual Earth is wiped out in a matter of seconds by an alien race called the Vogons, and it's not even out of malice. They just need to make way for a literal space highway. This actually mirrors the very mundane, bureaucratic demolition of the main character, Arthur Dent's house, earlier that exact same day. Later on, we casually find out that 10 billion lives were lost on a planet just for amusement in an intergalactic game of bar billiards. The universe, Adams is telling us, just keeps on moving without a second thought. So, how do we cope with all that? Well, let's look at Section 2, Distractions from the Meaningless. Since the universe totally lacks a grand meaning, philosophers and academics suggest we basically survive through the art of distraction. Take our bewildered human protagonist, Arthur Dent. He eventually finds a strange sort of peace by distracting himself from the crushing absurdity of the cosmos. How?
By focusing entirely on a highly specific, super mundane task. He strands himself on a pre-industrial planet and literally becomes the village's humble sandwich maker. By pouring all of his energy into crafting the absolute perfect sandwich, he successfully ignores the terrifying infinite void. He keeps his internal perspective busy.
Now, of course, other characters use far less subtle distractions. The guide famously features the pan-galactic gargle blaster, which is widely considered the best drink in existence. Its effects are described as, and I quote, like having your brains smashed out with a slice of lemon wrapped around a large gold brick. Alcohol and escapism are just rampant in Adams' universe. They serve as a very literal, very temporary way to simply forget how absurd existence truly is. But here's where things get really wild. This philosophical humor eventually evolved into something completely different. Welcome to Section 3, Predicting the Tech Future. To truly appreciate this guy's genius, we have to look at the timeline. The Hitchhiker's Guide actually started as a BBC radio play back in 1978. And in the story, the guide itself is described as this sort of electronic book. Now, remember, this was decades before the modern smartphone or the Kindle were even a glimmer in a tech CEO's eye. Long before those devices existed, Adams had already conceptualized the ultimate, handheld, searchable electronic repository of all human knowledge. His accuracy was just astounding. In some unseen notes from the late 1990s, Adams wrote about the public's resistance to ebooks. He correctly predicted they would need to become smaller, lighter, and cheaper. He even got into the weeds, specifying that computer screens at the time, which were about 74 dots per inch, were just too blurry for comfortable reading. He predicted we would need backlit screens with massive jumps in resolution to really change public attitude. Which, by the way, is exactly what today's 300 dpi smartphone displays do. And it doesn't stop there. In a 2001 speech in Cannes, he essentially outlined modern Bluetooth and Apple CarPlay, predicting phones that communicate wirelessly with televisions, computers, and specifically cars. He hit the nail right on the head. But zooming all the way back down to Earth, we arrive at part 4, the relatable, struggling genius. It's so vital to remember that the creator of these vast philosophical universes and these spot-on tech prophecies was just incredibly, wonderfully relatable. He wasn't some unfeeling machine. He was a deeply human guy. Despite his brilliant mind, Adams was a legendary procrastinator. He often absolutely hated the actual physical process of writing. In a note to himself that was recently uncovered in his archives, he wrote, "Today I am monumentally fed up with the idea of writing. I haven't actually written anything for 2 days, and that makes me fed up as well." Isn't it incredibly comforting to know that the man who mapped out the absurdity of the entire galaxy struggled just to sit down at his desk? So the crucial point here is that even visionary creators have to actively fight through their own internal dread to find their rhythm and make something wonderful. In that very same self-pep talk, he reminded himself to just forget about the worry and press on. He wrote that it's much better to generate pages and pages of messy material to craft and shape later, rather than obsessing over one manically reworked paragraph. You just have to attack the work and not let it attack you. The famous words emblazoned on the cover of the Hitchhiker's Guide are, "Simply don't panic." And as we wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with this provocative thought. Knowing that the universe is vastly, hugely, mind-bogglingly big, uncaring, and largely meaningless by default, how do you navigate the absurd? Whether you choose to find meaning or simply seek comfort and distraction through technology, humor, your life's work, or just making a really good sandwich, how do you keep your internal perspective thriving against the infinite void? Think about that for a bit, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.